all of a sudden they can get into that home that they thought a year ago they would never get into. First-time buyers are now going to have access to 30-year amortization.
First-time home buyers will now have 30 years to pay off their mortgage instead of 25.
People need to get married now to buy a house.
Yeah, or buy with a friend.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. A lot of people, come with unreal expectations to say, I want a 2-bedroom, I want to live in downtown Vancouver, and I want to pay 800 grand for it. Cool. Where's that? What we're seeing is it's so unaffordable to live, I think, anywhere in Canada.
Recently, I tried buying some groceries. I'm like, what? Why does it cost $200 a week to just eat a home? In 2025, first-time home buyers, what's the most important thing that they need to know right now? 2025 is the year for first-time buyers. There's a lot of things that we need to be looking forward to for first-time buyers in 2025, which is what we're talking about today.
Yeah, so I think what is really good to touch on is the rule changes for first-time buyers. So as of December 15th, first-time buyers are now going to have access to 30-year amortizations.
Right.
So
okay, let's stop there first. We were talking about this and I was really confused what you were saying.
Sure.
First of all, this is a federal thing, right?
Yes.
So all of Canada wide.
Yes.
Okay. Second of all, what is the amortization?
So an amortization is really you're taking a lump sum of money and you're paying it back over a number of years.
Right.
So, currently right now, in amortization for first-time buyers, 25 years, and that is being increased to 30. So if you borrow 500 grand, you're amortizing that amount over 30 years. So that basically gives you a monthly payment.
Right. So that lowers your monthly payment.
Yes, it'll be lowering your monthly payment.
And for the 25 years amortization, has it always been this or has it been even shorter before?
No, it's actually used to be 30. It actually, all back, when I first started, we used to have 40-year amortizations. So,
okay.
Essentially.
How long ago is this?
I started in 2010 and we still had access to 40-year amortizations.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. How much is the difference, of how much you have to pay between 25 and a 40-year amortization?
It's dramatic. I mean, your payments aren't going to be half because that would be 50, but they're basically going to be reduced.
Okay, let's say 25 to 50. That doesn't mean your payments are half because it's still a exponential curve on how much of your principal you're paying off, right?
Well, yeah, but see, as the longer you go along with the amortizations, you start to pay more principal. Your interest goes down.
Right, but isn't it still not linear? Isn't it still...
Well, yeah, I mean, if we're looking at it from, you're going to pay less interest in a 25-year amortization than you would a 30 because you're amortizing it longer.
Okay.
But I think where, 2025 is going to really change for people is, the cost of housing is so exponential that now you're able to increase your purchasing power. So give you an example is a family with a household income of $100,000 currently has a 25-year amortization. By now on December 16th, when you can, submit a new application, their purchasing power increases by 7%.
Okay.
So, what does that look like on numbers? I mean, with a 25-year amortization, they could buy a house that's $445. And now they can purchase a house that's $480.
You're talking about $445, $480. That's the value of the home, but most of the time, what they're mainly concerned about is just the down payment first, right?
Yeah. So your down payment goes from $22,000 on a home that's $445,000. Then on $480,000, it goes to $24,000. So it's an increase of $2,000 more, but you're able to borrow 7%.
It's more like an incentive, but it's not really a...
we need to look at first-time buyers traditionally have always been not able to get into the market. And
why? Because of lack of money or lack of
qualification. I think qualification. I think that, as housing prices have gone up, government regulation has also increased. So,
qualifications, people who are working full-time jobs are still not getting qualified?
Absolutely. They're not getting qualified the way they used to.
Which is what?
When I first bought my place, it was $429,000 and I made 60 grand. That was 2010.
So now it's people under what income bracket are getting difficulty qualifying? Is it income bracket thing or type of
I think it's an income bracket. I mean, if we're looking at, when I was in university, it was kind of this thing, and make 100 grand, you've made it, and now to say, hey, I make 100 grand, that should be enough to own a home. But unfortunately, the prices of housing, the government regulation has made 100 grand kind of obsolete,
right?
And we're looking at okay, 445 to 480. I mean, that would potentially get you, a condo somewhere outside of the GVRD, but we got to look at that's still an opportunity for somebody,
Right.
and I think that's important to look at. Now, that's looking at, I think 100,000 is a pretty base household income. We're seeing first-time buyers, come in with household incomes around 120, 150.
Right.
That could get you somewhere in and around Vancouver. It could definitely get you a one-bedroom in North Vancouver.
So if you're making less than 120, you're getting hard to qualify in the central Vancouver area.
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy. Because who's going to be making 120 to 150? Those aren't corporate jobs, unless you're in finance, tech, like the booming industry. But that's not an average corporate job salary.
No, I mean, if we look at it saying, okay, we have two, a couple, and they're each making 60, that's
household
at 100 household income,
Okay.
right? So household income would be 120.
Right. So people need to get married now to buy a house.
Yeah, or buy with a friend.
120.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Buy with a friend? Would
Buy
that
with a
actually
friend.
work?
Yeah, absolutely, you
How
can.
do you do that?
I would recommend that you have an investor's agreement before you buy with a friend,
Okay.
right? But you can use both incomes to purchase. You can actually use all borrowers.
Would you do that for a house you live in or just for an investment?
I wouldn't do it for a house I live in, but for some individuals that buying with a friend is becoming more common. Buying with a roommate, I mean, you got to be able to stand them. But we always say, make sure you have your ducks in a row legally. But
Buying with a friend is very interesting. I had some friends recently that have bought Lamborghinis together, like two people. I'm like, what? How do you do this? And how do you split? But they're really good friends. But still, it doesn't make sense for me. I'm like, this is eventually a problem.
yeah, I mean, you're purchasing a depreciating asset together. So I mean, I guess you can do it.
But how do you share it? And then how do you decide when you sell it? Or this is all on a legal document, very clearly.
You would definitely want a partnership agreement in any any type of agreement that you're sharing an asset of any type.
Right.
For the time you're going to use it, how payments are made, how servicing is made. I mean, same thing with a mortgage. How your contributions monthly, who will take on, joint repairs are going to be split, all that kind of thing. But it is becoming more common to purchase with friends.
One thing, I haven't thought about this, but like, if this actually works and there's not too many disputes, why would I not just pool money together and just keep purchasing rental properties?
There's nothing stopping you from doing that.
Are people already doing that, or is it something I don't know about?
Yeah, no, people are doing that. We work with a lot of clients that purchasing. They purchase in holding companies, so they're insulated by corporate law. Then you have shareholders agreements and things like that. But banks do finance those deals.
Right. Well, that's their full-time business, right?
Yeah, so you have a lot of individuals that are looking to acquire real estate, at least from the investing side, and they predominantly do it within a corporate structure, not so much personally. But what we're seeing, I think more now is if it's going to be owner occupied, friends or roommates are getting together and pooling money to purchase and living.
I think one thing that this is super surprising to me. If everyone's talking about they can't afford homes and everything, we're not. No one knows all the solutions.
No.
They just know I need to buy a home. That's the only thing they know.
Yeah.
But they don't know all these other options. I can pool homes. Of course, it's not the most the desirable.
Not desirable.
You gotta live within your means.
Yeah, you really do. And I mean, I think that brings, the desire. I think that a lot of people, come with unreal expectations to say, I want a 2-bedroom, I want to live in downtown Vancouver, and I want to pay 800 grand for it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Where's that?
Right.
So it's, I think that what we're seeing more is you're seeing kind of the urban sprawl where people are saying, okay, if I'm looking for 800, or this is what I want, a series of wants to say it's got to be 2-bed, 2-bath, 1,000 square feet. I need to have some type of view. I don't want to look into a building. Where is that property?
Mm-hmm.
And they're moving outside of Vancouver, further outside of the GVRD to obtain that. And I think that it's got to be, people got to be realistic in their expectations, and I think we're seeing a lot more of that now, to say, okay, this is my series of requirements, and I'm going to go to Surrey to get them. Right, that's what it is.
So let's come back to this amortization thing. So what I'm curious about is, what is this ratio between down payment increase to qualification increase?
Well, I mean, I think like, okay, so if we're going to go in, more in depth on how you qualify.
Or let's use an easier number. Like let's use $1 million property.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say before this amortization increase, 25 years, it's $1 million. I can buy $1 million property with a $200,000 down payment.
Well, now you're doing 20%, right? So, so as a first time buyer, right, the previous rules used to state that you could purchase a property under $1 million. They said $1 million.
Okay.
The reality is it was $999,999.99. So that's what a first time buyer could buy with about 7.5% as a down payment. So the new rules are stating that is going from $1 million to $1.5 million.
Okay.
Your issue is, well, now you need the income to service it. When we did the numbers recently, for another example, you would need a $300,000 income to service a purchase price of $1.5 million with less than 20% down.
Right. So with the 1.5 million, the minimum down you have to pay is 7.5%.
Yeah, it's in and around that. The CMHC has a specific qualification, so it's I could get that information for you, but yeah, let's just call it.
At what point would it make sense for someone to pay the minimum? Because they're paying a lot more principal or interest on their total principal.
Well, absolutely. If you're paying the minimum down payment, you also have insurance costs, right? So those insurance costs become exponential as well as you're paying insurance for the amount your mortgage, right? So it's obviously more advantageous to come up with 20% down. But I think the real big thing is what we see is not a lot of first-time buyers try to purchase $1 million property.
So it's going to increase the amount of people trying to purchase it, but do you think there's going to be people who won't be able to afford the monthly payments at some point if they get laid off or?
Well, absolutely. And I mean, that's the risk with, I think with, just getting a mortgage in general is, are you ready for it? Because really a mortgage is all you're doing is trading money for rent.
Right.
So I think that the vast majority of first-time buyers are just they're very payment focused, and part of, our job as brokers is there is government guidelines to put that, backstop in place. So it's not like unfeathered access to capital, but, where the changes become is to go from a 25 to a 30-year amortization, you lower your monthly payments, which means your cash flow goes up.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important for people we're looking at the cost of living, has increased 30% since, just before the pandemic. So you're looking at everything's more expensive. They're talking about food prices going up 8% next year. I guess the silver lining is saying, well, if you are in the market to buy, at least your mortgage/rent payment will become cheaper. And I think I think that gives a lot of first-time buyers some hope.
So we're giving a lot of incentives, or we're pushing people to just go purchase their home.
Yeah, it's we haven't seen 30-year amortizations. I mean, probably since I think it was 2015 when they got rid of them on first-time buyers. They were, they instituted the stress tests, and then they got rid of 25-year AMs. So, what we're doing is, what's old is new again.
Whether you're a first-time buyer, seasoned investor, or ready to sell, Prompton Real Estate Services is your go-to partner in Vancouver. Their market knowledge, personalized service, and commitment to success set them apart. Take the next step with confidence. Visit Prompton.com and let Prompton Real Estate Services help you achieve your real estate goals.
One thing I'm very curious about, so I just came back from Asia, and everywhere you go Asia, of course, no tips. Service is fantastic everywhere.
Yeah.
Because of, one, I think it's density. Competition is so high.
Yeah.
Even if you get paid so low, if you don't do this job great, you don't get this job.
Yeah.
But here it's like, one is because maybe there's not enough these working class people competition. It's like people aren't, people are getting tipped 20% to barely do anything.
Yeah, I mean, diving into tipping culture is interesting. I think that, I just think in general, what we're seeing is it's so unaffordable to live, I think, anywhere in Canada. Mm-hmm. You're looking at Vancouver, the cost of the meal, you're going out, it's minimum $100, assuming you don't drink. It's with everything. I just think it's just generally so unaffordable.
Do we want to make homes more affordable, or do we want to make people make more money? Or we do both at the same time, of course.
Yeah, the thing that you really need is okay, so how does somebody buy a home? You need expendable income, i.e. savings to buy a home. Okay, what's the number one problem that people have? Well, they don't have enough income left over for taxes and cost of living to buy that home. So what does that leave you with? I mean, the last time we had chatted was the transfer of wealth. Is, well, if I'm making 150 and the government's taking 45% of that, yeah, I'm gonna have to wait until my parents who are still living, give me some of their money.
Right.
So I think that in Canada in general, we have a serious problem with we don't promote being successful anymore.
Well, yeah, I think this tax thing is huge because, well, I think business tax is reasonable here, but personal income tax
It's ridiculous.
is one of it's probably one of the highest in the world.
Well, what do you your marginal tax rate over 250 is 53%.
Yeah.
So basically you don't work for yourself, you work for the government. Why would you want to work?
Right.
So why would you set up roots in British Columbia? If you're a doctor making 500 grand, why we have a doctor shortage? Who really wants to set up here when they say, okay, I'll work 14-hour days, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and I'll just pay the government 53%. There's no incentive to be successful.
Right. So the thing about helping people afford homes, one is I think this increasing amortization is great.
Yeah.
But increasing income actually doesn't help them because if the tax is going to be this high anyways, it doesn't do much.
Well, it needs to work in lockstep, right? So allow more people to qualify for homes, promote building of homes, and stop taxing them to death.
Right.
Would arguably balance out your system better than it is, right?
Was it possible to stop? Like, how long in place has this tax bracket been set up for?
Oh, I mean, I think we can all make an agreement. In the last 9 years, our taxes have slowly crept up to levels that just are not sustainable based on what we pay. I mean, if you are in that group, fortunate enough to make over 250, we can't say medical services are great. We can't say that we're, pleased with where tax dollars are being spent, what they're being thrown away at, and I think it's not news to anybody. I think Canadians overwhelmingly are fed up with our current state of affairs. And, next year when you have Donald Trump come in, he's already threatening to tariff Canada 25%. So, I mean, that could really penalize Canadians, cause inflation to go up because the cost of goods are now increasing.
Well, what does that look like for everyone in the real estate market? So I know a lot of my friends or people I know are leaving Canada. They're like, some of them are even letting go of their Canadian citizenship. Like, we don't want to be a part of this anymore.
Yeah.
So let's say that happens. At some point, everyone starts migrating out. But the point after that is also a new opportunity where they need to start giving incentives for everyone to come back in again.
Yeah, I mean, if you are having a negative net population growth in your province or even your country, you have a serious problem. But the ones that fight through and stay, the opportunities are going to be exponential. But I mean, if you have a ton of people leave and they put their houses up for sale, well, now you've increased supply. And now we have a supply and demand problem, so you have more supply than you have demand, prices will come down. Right. So, opportunities would be for people that could say, hey, I'm going to buy a couple of condos under, with some friends under a corporate name. And now I got 2 properties and eventually people will come back. But, I don't think that's going to,
with all these variables coming up, even with the 7% cheaper, isn't it still scary? Why should I buy right now?
I mean, why you would buy right now is we are in a declining rate market. Bank of Canada is a meeting on Wednesday. Economists widely expect them to cut the rate another 50 points as they did in October. So what does that mean? It means the cost of funds are getting cheaper, which is downward pressure on rates. So rates are getting cheaper, meaning that mortgage payments are more affordable. Stress test is going down, which means you can now purchase more. Now you have a 30-year amortization. So the tides are changing to say, look, if it's getting easier to buy a home based on your income, arguably more people would buy because housing is of top priority in Canada for a lot of the Gen Zs,
Well, one obstacle I see a lot of my friends have is, of course, there's a lot of professional real estate people in Vancouver telling them all this information, but it's hard for them to trust them because at the end of the day, they're making money off of this, right? So are there any people who aren't making money off of this that's very advocating for it that people can look at?
Call us. I mean,
well, you're making money. That's the problem.
I only make money if you close, right? So for us in our business is, mortgage brokers we're only paid if we fund a mortgage. Our advice is free. and we don't charge anything for it.
So right now, first-time home buyers, like, what is this person? Paint the picture for me. The person that's, you know, this thing is gonna let them tip over the edge to purchase. What does that person look like? And around what income bracket?
I mean, we're seeing first-time buyers come in typically around the, you know, the 130, 140 range as household income.
Oh, household. Well,
You're assuming it's like a single individual.
I didn't know it was, you need that type of income bracket to qualify. So that means they can't even qualify without doing that.
Yeah. So, you know, how that situation gets changed is what we see is parents are guaranteeing mortgages. So a lot of first-time buyers, the parent does not need to be well off by no means. I mean, if a first-time buyer is coming to us with a $75,000 income and their parent is still actively working, even retired, you know, with a $100,000 income, they'll guarantee their kids will pay the mortgage. Why? Is because those mortgage payments arguably are always cheaper than rent,
Right.
unless they've been in something for 7 years. You know, if we're looking at you know, $3,000+ a month rent bills, we're seeing a lot of first-time buyers. They're very active on saying, okay, I'm paying, you know, $3,250 a month in rent. This is affordable for me, but hey, I want my mortgage payment, strata fees, property taxes to be under that. So they're very cautious.
Well, what about the first-time buyers who are small business owners? And maybe their personal income is not super high, but their business is doing not bad.
Yeah, so, you know, that one is unique. There's a lot of more now, you know, than ever. There is, you know, business for self programs. You know, the insurers have, you know, some of these new programs as well for, say, individuals that have been less than 2 years in business. But what we recommend, obviously, is, you know, if you're a new business and you're going into your second year, if you completed your second year, you obviously have a grip and a foothold of what you are doing, you know. But if they are keeping a lower income, but their businesses are doing well, they'll have money in the business, and you can actually use with some banks, you can use business income to qualify, right?
You know what? We need me. Everybody needs me. I'm gonna facilitate every first-time home buyer in Vancouver. I'm gonna make a Facebook page.
You should. I think that, I think first-time homebuyers, the big thing is education, right? They don't know what they can buy, and then when they reach out to the person to say, well, you know, what can I buy? Some of them are like, holy, actually, it's like, yeah, like you can do it. You know, and I think that's positive, and it's only going to get better, right? A 30-year RAM, rates are coming down, stress test comes down. You know, all of a sudden they can get into that home that they thought a year ago they would never get into.
Yeah, well, real estate is getting better, but everything else is not getting better.
Absolutely not. No, yeah.
I haven't bought groceries in a while because, well, all my groceries are usually free because I work with companies. Lucky me.
There you go.
But recently I tried buying some groceries. I'm like, what? Why does it cost $200 a week to just eat at home?
Yeah, it's again, I mean, going back to the cost of living in Canada, it's unsustainable at this point, and I don't know what else to say. It's horrible. Yeah, it's awful. So,
wow. Okay. So let's wrap it up here. Cool. In 2025, first-time home buyers, what's the most important thing that they need to know right now?
what they need to know is if they're in the position and they're ready to purchase, find somebody, a mortgage broker. Don't go to your bank. Go to a mortgage broker. Find out what you can purchase and really make plans for that. I believe that more and more of these first-time home buyers are coming off the sidelines, and that will drive the price.
Is there an easier way to simplify that process? Because it's not easy to go out and to do something you don't usually do.
Absolutely. Just contact us on Instagram at mortgagingvancouver.ca, and I will help them out.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is why you are a professional.
Yeah.
Professional at sales as well. Okay, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.